and it's going to get very interesting today, because today I want us to speak about the dramatic elements. We do have several elements of drama. When we talk about elements of drama, we are basically talking about some of the features that defines or that qualifies a piece of creative writing to be classified as drama. So we have certain elements, certain attributes, certain characteristics that when they are found or they are present in a piece of writing, then there is every right, there is every authorization to classify or to qualify that particular piece of writing or that particular piece of creative writing as being dramatic or drama. So I'm going to spend the next 30 minutes live today explaining to you what these elements are, and if possible, answer a few of your questions on these elements. So as you can see on your screen, we have a lot of them, tons and tons of these elements of drama. The first one I have on my screen, as you can see, is action. Basically, action involves movement. Action involves activities. Action involves what you do, how you do it. So a piece of writing that calls for characters, that calls for the actors to engage in certain narratives, to engage in certain activities that would drive the plot, is what to refer to as drama. So when that narrative actually allows you to take part in certain activities, then we say it's action. And basically, when we talk about drama, we have a lot of these actions taking place. Then another element of drama that I want to talk about today are the audience. When we talk about drama, we are making reference to a piece of writing that is meant to be performed, and it is predominantly or basically performed on stage. So once it is performed on stage, it's obvious that we need people to watch the performance. We need people to be present and take part in the performance. They do not take part in the performance by showing themselves on stage. No. They do not take part in the performance by appearing on stage. That is not what they do, but rather they watch the performance and they are called audience. Now, as you can see on the screen, the role of the audience is or are indispensable. When we talk about the role of the audience being indispensable, we mean that drama without the audience is incomplete. It's not complete, because this audience do a lot to energize the performers. Their responses actually gives a form of feedback to the characters on stage. It pre-informs them about the success or failures, about their strengths and weaknesses, about what needs to be improved upon, what needs to be attended to. So basically, if you are performing and there are no audience, the characters on stage actually lose a lot of energy. That is why we say that the audience play a very significant role. Another thing about drama, an element of drama I want us to look at are characters. And here I'll be talking a little bit longer than what you have on the screen. So the characters are the individuals, the animals, the things, or any other object that is given a role in the drama. And they perform this role in different ways depending on how and which role they were given. Now, let's start by looking at certain types or categories of characters. So the types and the categories of characters actually varies. When I say varies, I mean that it depends on the angle you are looking at it from. So one group of people or one school of thought believes that when we talk about the types of characters, we are looking at major characters or the protagonist. And the major character or the protagonist is the main character around whom or around which the plot evolves. Most of the actions are performed by this character, and he or she or it is seen in almost all the scenes. In their absence, the drama is incomplete. In their absence, it becomes very difficult for the drama to progress or to continue. Closely related to the major characters or the major character is the deuteragonist. And I usually tell my students that the deuteragonist is the second most important character. It's like the assistant protagonist. You can say that. Now, a deuteragonist is also very important, and he or she plays a kind of a supportive role to that of the main character. So it means that in the absence of the main character, the next character that plays very important role is the deuteragonist. So when the main character isn't there, you can fall on the deuteragonist. So I have a question on the screen and you can respond to it. Whatever answer you give, I'll give my opinion. So do you think that there can be drama without characters? You can respond to it when you're ready. So I talked about the main character. I also talked about the deuteragonist. The next character I want to talk about is the minor characters. So directly opposite the main character are minor characters. They do not play much significant roles, but rather they play supporting roles. So some minor characters could appear in only one scene, and that is the end of their role in the drama. But they are also equally important because that minor role, even though the drama will make full sense without it, is still needed for a complete drama to be staged. Now we also have, if you refer to the main character as the protagonist, then we have an antagonist. So an antagonist happens to be that character that opposes the protagonist, the direct opposer of the protagonist. That is the antagonist. So the antagonist's main role is to oppose the actions or the activities of the protagonist. Here, I once told a group of students that depending on how you define the antagonist is not always evil. But it looks like in most of our dramatic series or in most of our dramatic piece of work, it looks like the antagonist happens to always play negative roles. So most students tends to think or tends to conclude or tends to assume that the antagonist is a negative character. But basically, the antagonist is not just a negative character, but the antagonist could be positive depending on the protagonist, because the antagonist is the direct opposite of the protagonist. So depending on the role played by the protagonist, that you can define whether the antagonist is negative or is positive. Now, looking at the antagonist, there's another character that plays similar roles as the antagonist, and most people tends to confuse this character or these characters with the antagonist. That's the villain. So a villain character is an evil character. So basically, the villain could be protagonist, could be antagonist. But what defines a villain character is that that villain character is evil. They are engulfed in negativity. They are engulfed in evil. Their role is to just seek, sought, or look for the downfall of the main character. That is all they are interested in. That is all they want. Nothing else concerns them. They just want to seek the downfall of the protagonist or others in society. And basically, that is an antagonist. Now, we can also look at types of, there are more characters that we can talk about under this category. I mentioned main character or protagonist, minor characters, antagonist, the villain. There are lots of them. I'll dedicate one life lesson where I'll teach only characters. But some people, when you ask them to tell you types of characters or to name types of characters, they mention or they usually talk about the static character, the round character. So basically, a static character is a flat character. Sometimes I try to put the two together. When we say character is static or flat, it means that they play a static role. Playing a static role simply means they are not flexible in their roles. They do not change their roles. So if they start the drama as evil, they end it as evil. If they start it as good, they end it as good. If they start it as a hero or a strong character or a rich person, they also end it as such, as a hero or heroine, a strong or weak character. That is basically the static or flat character. We also have the round or dynamic character, just like the basic denotative meaning of dynamic, dynamism. So to be dynamic means to be involved in different kinds of actions or activities. So when we talk about a dynamic character, we are simply talking about a character who does not play a single role throughout the piece of writing or throughout the drama. Basic note here that when we talk about characters, they are not limited to drama. They are not elements of drama alone, but they are key elements of drama. And that's why I'm spending this time to give you detailed explanations about them. So when we talk about the dynamic characters, they could start as poor and as rich. They could start as evil and as good. They could start, they change their roles. They change their, when we get to the pyramid, the dramatic pyramid, I'll explain more with that. So We also have a static flat character or dynamic or round character. But basically, action is key to drama. Audience are key and very important to drama. Then characters are very important or equally important when it comes to drama. Now, below, we are now moving to the next set of elements. So we have drama entails monologue or can entail monologue. Okay, so I think the best definition or the best explanation to give to drama in this case is that it can entail monologue. When we say monologue, we are looking at a single character on stage delivering a speech. Depending on the purpose and the targeted audience of this speech, you can give the monologue different kinds of names. And I intentionally selected these three that you can see on your screen now to explain them for you to understand, because when we talk about elements of drama, they are things that usually get people confused, or a lot of beginners or a lot of learners of literature confused. So when we talk about a monologue, like I said and like I can read, it's a speech by one person, often used to develop character and plot, as seen in Shakespeare's plays. So I think William Shakespeare's plays, Midsummer Night's Dream, um, Othello, Romeo and Juliet, most of these plays do have monologues in it. One character, one person stands on stage and talks alone. It's just like I define a single speech. Now, the purpose of this is sometimes to reveal the inner qualities of this character. At other times, it's also meant to make other people get an insight into this character. It also helps to develop the plot. Plot development can be very complex, especially those of you that are ardent readers or ardent drama watchers. You watch drama in series. If you watch drama in series, you can attest to the fact that it can be very frustrating, or it can be very difficult, intellectually demanding to develop a complex plot. So one way that you can do that is to allow your characters to engage in monologues. They get opportunity to explain situations, to give facts, and then to also guide you in your comprehension of the writing. Closely related to monologue is soliloquy. Now, soliloquy is also one person talking. It's just like monologue, one individual that seems to talk and talk and talk. That can also be that is soliloquy. But the difference between monologue and soliloquy is that soliloquy is a one-way thing. The person is talking to him or herself. He is not addressing anyone, even though the audience hears it. They are unintended audience, because the focus for the soliloquy is for a character to bring out his or her inner thoughts or its inner thoughts. And these inner thoughts are not meant to the hearing of other characters, no, or other persons around. Basically, one way I can explain soliloquy for you to easily understand is that sometimes when you walk on the street, you may walk past someone and the person will say something. You respond involuntarily because you think that the person was addressing you, and the person seems to be surprised that you even said anything. That is basically what we mean by soliloquy. Someone addressing himself or someone talking to himself. In the sphere of drama, it becomes a person talking to himself or herself. That is soliloquy. Then, so monologue, one person talking, sometimes to the audience, or mainly or mostly to the audience. Soliloquy, one person talking, but to himself or herself or itself. Then we have aside. So aside, I call aside jovially a gossip. I call aside a gossip because it's a speech or a short comment that is passed by a character about another character. But this is the, so aside can take several forms. So let me pick one or two of them for today's life. One, a character, we have maybe three characters on stage. And one character seems to say something about another character or the second character to the third one. And the third one is standing there, but it is assumed that he or she or it didn't hear it. Then it becomes an aside. So I am addressing you, I'm talking to you about a third person, but even though the third person is standing there, because it's an aside, he or she or it didn't hear, therefore cannot react to what I said. Two, aside can also take the form where two characters are on stage and I tend to gossip, or one character tends to gossip or say something about the second character to the audience. So the audience will hear, will react, but this character will not. Basically, or a good example is this: I'm on stage with you, and maybe I wish I can be on stage with all my audience or listeners now, so that we add a simple play to show this. So I'm on stage with a character. We are two characters on stage, and one character walks to me and asks me for maybe money. Can you loan me some money? Now, by asking me, can you loan me some money? Then I turn to the audience and say something like, why? Does this character or this person think I'm a fool? Me, give my money to you. Me, McDarlington, give my money to you. I would have given it to a beggar on the street. Then the audience might laugh, or this might spark a reaction from the audience. Then this character I am on stage with, who knows that I said something or who heard me, but because it's an aside, would not face it. What did you say? So I didn't say anything serious. I was just thinking loud, or I was just thinking aloud about how to get you this money. The economy is very difficult for everyone now, and it's quite difficult to raise such amount of money. But I'll do whatever I can to help you get the money, even though I just pass an aside that I wouldn't give you. So basically, when we talk about aside, this is it. So as a way of summarizing the first part of our life today, when we mention dramatic elements, we are talking about certain key features that defines a piece of writing. So you could talk about elements like action, audience, characters. You could talk about monologue, soliloquy, and aside. So when we talk about action, we are talking about the activities, the movements, the reactions that characters engage in to reveal their inner thoughts, to reveal their inner emotions, to carry out a message, to fulfill a mission, to fulfill a role. When we talk about audience, we are talking about the observers. This is purely register. We are talking about the observers, the onlookers, the watchers, those who sit down. If the play is in an auditorium, those who sit in the auditorium and watch the action taking place on stage is what we call, or how the people refer to as the audience. Then the characters are those that you see on stage performing. Then we have a monologue, one person giving a long speech to the audience or to himself. An aside, one person talking to himself or itself. And that's soliloquy, one person talking to himself or itself. Then an aside, one person gossiping. As I told you, I usually put it, gossiping or saying something about himself to others. Now, there are a few other elements of drama that I want to mention now before we bring our life to an end for the first time today. So one of the other elements that I want us to look at is stage. Once you call it drama, you need a stage. If it's a film or a movie, you need sets or scenes. So a stage is that raised platform where characters will stand and perform. It's called a stage. If it is drama, it must definitely have a stage. Now, I use strong words here, must and definitely, even though they are similar, but it must have a stage or definitely needs a stage. But I combine them because it's a necessity. It's a necessary evil. You cannot call it a piece of drama if it doesn't have a stage. Now, another thing about the stage that I want us to look at, another thing about the elements of drama that I want us to look at is that drama usually goes with, we call it props. A piece of drama usually has props. Now, when we talk about props, we are talking about what the characters need and use in the performance of their roles, what they need and what they use when they perform their roles on stage. These are props. So you only call it prop when the character needs it and uses it. So characters, what they take on stage and do not use should not necessarily be classified as prop or props. But when they take it on stage and they use it, then you call it a prop. So depending on the content of the drama, props could vary. They could range from houses built on stage, chairs, tables, Bible, brooms. They are uncountable. Different thing. Once it is something that a character will need on stage or needed on stage and uses it, it becomes a prop. So that's another thing that you should note as an element of drama. I'll call it again a stage, prop. Now, another key element of drama, which is common in, I think, prose too sometimes, but predominantly in drama and films or movies, is costume. So props are the things you need. Costume are what you need to wear. Your clothes, what you wear. These are the costumes. And basically, they define characters. You know, I mentioned to you that through action, we get to know the inner part of characters. And through speech, what they say. In drama, we call it dialogue. I will explain that later. Through dialogue, we also get to learn about some of these characters. But another thing that also help us to know about these characters, it's the costume. So a character who is acting as a thief or as an armed robber dresses in a particular way. Now, let me give you a key example. We have two pieces of drama performed. In one, the armed robber dressed like a street person. In another, the armed robber dressed in suit or dressed in suit. Each of these is revealing different things about these armed robbers. The one that is dressing in suit could be communicating something different. One, disguise. I wouldn't want people to know I'm an armed robber, or a thief. Therefore, I dress decently to disguise myself. Two, I am not a petty thief. I am not a low-class armed robber that only go robbing ordinary people and ordinary things. I am a high-ranked armed robber. I rob high-ranked people or places like banks, like multi-million-dollar establishments. I dress like that. So you realize that two different scenes or roles play with the same name but dress differently, communicate something about them. So costumes are also very important. Then you can never, my brothers and sisters, my audience, my students, my mentors, you can never talk about drama without dialogue. I talked about monologue, so I deem it necessary to talk about dialogue. So monologue is single person or individual speech. Dialogue is a conversation between two or more people. And I personally tell my students, I usually tell them that one of the things that forms the backbone of drama, it's dialogue. Because drama thrives on dialogue. So when you pick a book and you want to know if it is drama or not, you see the dialogue, the conversation. You see the names of the characters and what they say or they will say or they are saying or they have said. I don't know how you understand it, but I'm trying to communicate something. What they say, what they are saying, what they've said, or what they will say, depending on when the play will be performed or the drama will be staged. So dialogue is key. If you pick a prosaic work or novel, you hardly see names written with what they said or what they are saying or their speech attached to it. Today, literature and creativity or creative writing is becoming multidimensional. When I read a book, sorry, I forgot the title, Tale of a Crow, something like that. It's a francophone. It was written by a francophone uh, dramatist or playwright. I'll try to remember and I'll communicate it to you. And in that book, you could see all the elements of drama, all the elements of creative writing. You see elements of prose, elements of drama, elements of poetry. That's why I said writing today is becoming multidimensional. But that does not take away the fact that we have basic, core, prominent, or predominant features. And dialogue is one of them. Okay, I'll get a title. I'm trying to get a title, but I'll get it later. So today's writings are really multidimensional, and that informs us that when you talk about drama, it's difficult to maintain some of these features, but they are key. They are very key. Dialogue is key. Now, drama usually, this one is not related to only drama, but maybe movies and films, they come with scripts. The script is what you are expected to say as a character, and stage directions, what should go into the stage. So I've always told people I've mentored and taught that when you want to read a piece of drama, do not go straight to the content. Always read the stage directions. They always provide vital information that guides what you are supposed or expected to do and how you should do it. So stage directions are key. They are important and you should always read them. So basically, in today's life, we have looked at certain key elements of drama. I'll start from the ones I thought that are not on your screen, then I conclude on the ones that are on your screen. So we look at certain elements of drama such as dialogue, that's the conversation that ensues among or between the characters that are involved or that have been assigned roles in the drama. We talked about a stage, that is the raised platform where characters stand to perform. We talked about the script, that is their words, what they are expected to say. We talked about the stage directions, that contains the instructions about how the stage should be set up. Then we also looked at actions, audience, characters, monologue, soliloquy aside. I also mentioned costume and props, which are also very key. Then, as a way of ending today's life, I'm going to draw attention to curtain raiser and curtain call. So the curtain raiser marks the beginning of a play or a piece of drama, and the curtain call marks the end. So when the curtain is raised, it means everything is set. Characters will start coming on stage to perform or to deliver their roles. And when the curtain is called, there's nothing like curtain fall. When the curtain is called, it marks the end of the drama, marking the end that characters come on stage. Sometimes, depending on the level of the drama. They come to introduce themselves to you. In movies, we call it dramatis personae. Dramatis personae. Beginning, the names you see in movies, the cast, where you see the names of the characters. Then at the end, you see, the beginning you may see the dramatis persona, at the end you see the cast. Yeah, I think I messed them up there, sorry. So in drama, the curtain call is when the characters come on stage to introduce themselves to you and tell you the roles that they played. Wow, it's been a very fruitful first live, over 30 minutes live today. And definitely you are going to see me tomorrow live again, where I may go beyond and look at some literary devices tomorrow. We still have more elements of drama, so basically I may talk about some of them or look at some literary devices. Thank you for being part. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.